But the idea, it's like, if I can control everything in his environment, yeah, he might be able to not look at pornography.
Right. Send him on a deserted island. Right.
Yeah, but chances are, like, that's not going to solve the problem.
You're listening to Get Your Marriage On, the fun and spicy podcast bringing you new tools and fresh ideas so that you can be the sexiest couple you know.
Pornography use is distressing to many couples, especially Christian couples. We hear a lot about how to help those struggling with a bad habit, but what about the other side? The ones that feel hurt by their spouse's choices. How do you learn to trust again and grow stronger from the experience? You're about to meet my guests on today's episode, Zach and Darcy Spafford. On double lucky that they happen to live in my hometown. Zach used to struggle with habitual pornography use, and Darcy struggled with trying to figure out what to do with her feelings of hurt and mistrust. After applying certain tools and committing to serious growth together, they have not only overcome, but now they are thriving together in their relationship, as you'll see. Whether or not porn use is part of your story in your marriage, I hope you learn as much as I did from Zach and Darcy's courage and the action they took. If this episode is of particular interest to you, please take a moment and download my app, Life After Pornography Coach. It's an app like nothing else out there, designed to help a loved one overcome pornography use by getting to the root of the problem, rather than just trying to modify behavior, because that doesn't work. You can find it on the app stores by searching Life After Pornography, and you'll find it in the link to the show notes. Zach and Darcy, welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast this morning. I am so happy to have you here.
We're excited to be here.
Yes. We're good friends. Our wives are in the same homeschooling circles, and I just love your message and what you're doing. Anyway, for the sake of our listeners, can you give us a brief overview of how long you've been married, how many children you have, kind of where you are in life?
All right. So we have been married. It's going to be 19 years in July. It's kind of crazy.
Congratulations.
Almost 20. We're going to have to plan a huge trip because we haven't really been anywhere.
Let's go to Italy.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to go to Italy, just message us. We'll set up a big trip for all of us.
And then
I want to go too.
we have 8 children. Our oldest is 17 and a half now, and our youngest is 4. So we're pretty busy. We've got the young kids and the teenagers. So I feel like as parents, we've gone through it all. And yeah, so that's kind of us.
And we live in St. George, where it's nice and hot today.
Yes.
And beautiful.
And gorgeous.
Yeah. Can you tell us your story, like how you met and everything like that?
I want to tell this part. Can I tell this part? So I was at church in a place called Buffalo Grove, Illinois, which is not really important, but I was walking out of the church building, basically hand in hand with this girl that I was trying to get a date with, and my wife. My now wife, she starts walking into church, and I immediately said goodbye to the girl that I was talking to and turned around and walked into the church with her. And that was me at that moment saying, I know what's happening here. This is the next forever thing for us.
And I was
you knew
not
right off the bat.
That.
Love that first sight.
Yeah.
I was thinking, who is this short nerd following me into this church building?
This guy's creepy.
No. So yeah,
it was perfect. So that's how we met, and then we got engaged on Valentine's Day. Like 5 months later.
You're lying.
I'm lying. Yeah. Wait, did we try to get engaged on Valentine's Day?
No, I just came to visit.
Oh, that's what it was. I gave you a phone on Valentine's Day so we could talk. That's what it was. We had like 5,000 minutes on her parents' phone plan, and that was back when you would pay.
Our phone bill was $600.
It was brutal.
Because I was at school in Idaho going to college, and he was in Illinois working, making money.
I was getting rich.
We got engaged in April, and then we got married in July. So it was pretty quick. It was like Thanksgiving to July.
Yeah. It was a good time.
And pornography use has been a part of your story. Can you tell us about that experience and how that's happened for you?
Yeah. So when we were dating, I knew that he had seen pornography before.
Mm-hmm. How did you know he had?
because he had told me.
Yeah.
And that was more like, I thought it was before he served a 2-year mission for our church. And so before that, he had struggled a little bit. And then, so I kind of knew that, but then like, I just, in my brain, just thought it was done now. And he struggled with masturbating, and that was not okay in our circle. And so that was one of the things that like, I was like, oh, it's okay, because, once we get married, everything will be great. And so that was kind of how it started. And then when we were newly married, we were in college up in Idaho, and I found like some bikini pictures, and we'd probably been married like 3 months. It was really soon into short, and I freaked out, like literally freaked out. And then there was nothing more that I had found out about until so that was 2003. And then I found out in 2008 was when like I really found out that, oh wow, pornography is a problem in our marriage. So we had been married. How'd
you find that out?
How'd I find that out? Oh, pick up the laptop and go, whoa, what is this on the screen?
And then throw the laptop down the stairs.
Yeah.
That was
it didn't break.
It didn't break, thankfully, because it was my company laptop.
So yeah, that's how I found out. And then I pretty much cried that entire night. I was on the couch. I called my best friend, and I just cried and thought my life was over. And till like 3 a.m, literally. And we actually still talk about that night every once in a while, me and her, and just how far we've come, because in that moment I thought, oh my gosh, this is the end, right? Like marriages that struggle with pornography, they die, they don't last. And that was kind of the narrative that I had always heard. And so that's kind of what I was expecting to happen.
And that was, at that point, we had 3 kids.
Yeah, we had 3 kids. We'd had a really bad miscarriage that landed me in the hospital. Ambulance ride. That was fun. Anyways, and it was like 3 days later after that I had found out. So I was already like in the lowest of low place. And then it just was like, it just felt like someone ran over me with a truck to just really do me in. It was bad.
Yeah. It's like another blow kicking you while you're down.
Yeah.
And for me, it started when I was 8. It was, I'm playing in a truck tire on a playground in a place called Dugway, Utah. No one knows where that is, but I'm in that truck tire at 8 years old, and I find a pornographic magazine. And that was the start of me working to both find and be entertained by this kind of material, and not find and not be entertained by this kind of material for, the next 25 years. That was the struggle. It was back and forth and back and forth. And sometimes I was better. Sometimes I was not as good as I had wanted to be. But always that was kind of this thing in the background and in the back of my mind, drawing me in. And
except for back then, it was like Sears catalogs, because
yeah. It was pretty pedestrian. When the internet came along, it started to get more exciting, I guess. But the reality for me was I was always battling this. I never really wanted it in my life, but I found it to be valuable on occasion to help me manage my anxiety, or to help me stop being bored, or whatever it was. But it was this thing that drew me in constantly over time. And it was a battle. It was a long battle.
So were your efforts, Zach, at the beginning, like all about resistance and white knuckling and things like that? Or
yeah, no, I thought I didn't have enough willpower. I don't know about you, but everybody that I had ever talked to, they were like, oh, just stop it. Or, just change whatever's on the stage of your mind, or, just go for a run, or go do something else. And I
sing a church song.
Yeah. Sing a church song, sing a hymn. And I thought, you don't have enough willpower to just do these things. You're never going to be able to overcome this. You're never going to be able to leave this behavior behind because you can't stop doing that thing so that you can do these other things that you've been told to do. And I didn't realize then, and I realize it now. And this is part of the work that I do with people is I help people realize, you're not broken. You're not incapable. You're just getting the wrong advice. You're
Gotcha.
just somebody's telling you to, I don't know, cut your steak with a spoon. It's just not going to work. You might be able to mangle the crap out of that steak until you get, until finally you can get a bite, but it's just not. It's not the way that you want to do it.
Yeah. So try harder isn't going to help when you have the wrong tool.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating because the harder you try, the worse it gets.
Yeah. Can you speak on that? Like, what was your experience like that?
Well, I know for us, we tried everything, like literally everything. We went to an addiction recovery program at our church. We went to
counselors.
Yeah, we went to counselors.
We went to church leaders.
We went to counselors together. We went to counselors separate.
I think between all the people that we actually met with was probably in the neighborhood of like 20 individual people, not to mention the people in the groups.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we've done a lot of different things. I even went to like the SA groups, not
What's
attached
an
to
SA group, just in case someone doesn't understand.
Sex Addicts
Anonymous or whatever.
So
Sexaholics Anonymous.
Yeah, something like that. So I went to one of those in we were living in Thousand Oaks at the time. So I just drove to one of these groups. It wasn't attached to any church. It was just like its own standalone. And I mean, that was really eye-opening for me because I was like, whoa, okay, things could be a lot worse than what I'm dealing with. But I also didn't really find any healing there.
Well, and I think it's important to recognize that even though, I think there is a spectrum of behavior when it comes to sex. And even though, you might just be dealing with pornography in your relationship, that doesn't make it any less painful. It doesn't make it any less your struggle or the struggle that your partner has to deal with. It's still deeply, deeply painful, but there's a way out of that if you're willing to do it. And, I think what we found, like I went to, when I was in Milwaukee, I went to an SA group for the men that, I was probably the only one in there that wasn't there because I had been ordered by the court to be there. So I was very pedestrian. For me, I like to look at boobies on the internet. That was as bad as it got for me. These guys were doing sexual assault and things like that. So it was a very different feel, but that didn't mean anything to my wife because she still was frustrated and pained by my behavior. And really it was this, that was a really dark time, I think, in our lives when we were going to those meetings. We were not finding any help
or any answers.
Yeah. And for me, it was more like all it did was, so I went to a lot of I was in betrayal trauma groups on the internet. I was in, I went to the SA meetings and I went to the ones at the church that we attended. So I went to all these different meetings and all it did was keep me super angry and super frustrated with Zach. And it never gave me any hope.
What was it about those meetings that made you angry?
Well, it was...
Or that kept you angry?
Yeah, it was just that it made me feel so justified. It was like a huge group of women, basically all sharing their burdens about their husband's struggle with either pornography or some of them it was, affairs, internet stuff, internet chats, that kind of stuff, right? But it was just everybody was kind of just sharing their hurt and their pain, which I think there is a place for that, right? I think there is a place for that initially.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that for 5 years, it's like, okay, it's kind of like with our kids, right? Like if our kids are complaining about stuff over and over again, it's like hey, listen, guys, you guys can just keep complaining about how you want to go to the dollar store, or you could just get to work and do the things that you need to do so that you can go to the dollar store.
That's a true story at our house.
It's actually this morning, right? So it's probably not the best example, but it's on my mind because that's what went on this morning, right? It's just like, yeah, you can complain that you never get to go and that you never get to go anywhere and you never get to do these things, but you're also not really willing to do anything about it to get to where you want to be. And I guess that's how I felt when I was in these groups. It was
You're really invested in your position as the victim, and you enjoyed staying there because it meant you didn't have to do any work. You didn't have to change because it was all his problem, and you're off the hook.
Yeah, it's way easier.
And you're not happy.
Yeah, sorry, I keep talking over you. It's way easier to just look at it as like, hey, this is your problem, Zach. Like, you're the one that's looking at porn. I'm not. Like,
if you'll just fix this, then everything will be okay.
Or or it's so easy to get on the high horse. Like, I'm way better than you because I don't look at porn. I don't struggle the way that you struggle. So I'm, it was easy to get in that one-up position.
Yeah.
And it was really easy for me. Like, in that position, I had a lot of control.
Yes, you did.
Right. So it's like, if I can see myself as above Zach because he struggles with porn, then it gave me this like higher up ability to have more power and control over Zach, which, I mean, I didn't know that in the moment, right, when I was going through that. But looking back now on our journey and how much we've grown, I could see that position of me being on top was a powerful, very self-serving position, because if I could make Zach feel less than me, if I could
really
make him
easily,
feel worse, that he was not worthy of me, right? Then that was constantly having him trying to prove his worth to me.
So I would have to work extra hard, and I would have to do whatever she wanted. It was me constantly trying to manage her emotions, constantly trying to manage my place in our relationship.
Well, and trying to manage how I see you.
Yes.
Right. So like if he could do all the things with the kids and help with the house and, make a good living and advance in his career, like if he was constantly trying to prove his worth, that he was enough, even though he struggled with porn. And I always had that little bit that I could just hang over him. Oh, nope, but you look at porn. And I've actually talked to friends that, their husbands will confront them with something like, hey, you don't really do this or whatever. And instead of being like, oh, wow, yeah, you're right. Like, I am not very good at that. It's more like, oh, how dare you criticize me? What about all those years you looked at porn?
I see.
Were you being considerate of me then? And so it's like, it's this, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like this power.
It's your excuse. Yeah. It's your out. It's your trump card.
Yeah. It's like,
I can do anything I want to, and I'm the saint because my spouse is the porn addict or whatever you want to say.
And if I look back at my behavior, I was pretty dang rotten. Like, I was not a nice wife. And I was very, very critical. And I didn't talk very nicely to Zach. I mean, it wasn't like constant, right? Because there were times where there would be like months and things would get more back to normal. And then he would look at porn again. And then it would be like evil wife came out again. And I know now, like, that was my pain. It hurt. It felt hurtful. And partly that was because I didn't know any way to look at it other than that this is causing me pain and hurting me.
Did you ever give Zach ultimatums or a contract? Or because I hear a lot of that happening with some really angry wives.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, oh, if you look at porn again, I'm leaving. I'm taking the kids and leaving. Or if you don't tell me that you looked at porn within, so many hours, then like I'm out. Or, I didn't do a whole lot of withholding sex. Partly because I didn't necessarily want to not have sex, right? Like, I was like, I don't know.
It was just as fun for you as it was for me.
Yeah. So, but like there was always like a period where I didn't want to have sex afterwards.
I think that was a good thing for you to, because as we navigated this, it was always for her, it was never a thing where she was like, well, we can't have sex for 6 months or whatever. It was, well, I'm going to work to become ready to re-engage with you sexually, but it's going to be on my timeline. And that was never, I don't think it was ever more than a week, but it was you doing the work of getting back to, this is something that I want and like in our relationship.
I'm glad you only remember a week.
Well, you managed to have 8 kids, so.
I don't know. Maybe not.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Huh.
We were young.
So what was your aha moment? What was your epiphany moment when you decided, like, how'd you come to realize, like, you're being an evil wife, so to speak, in your own words?
Okay, so there's kind of more to the story. So I'm just going to go back to it. So, like, when we had our twins, so we had 4 kids in, like, basically 4 years. And then we had our twins, and at the time we had 6 kids, 7 and under. So, wow. I mean, it was like, that's a lot.
Stressful
like, I think we had like 5 kids in diapers, I swear, at least at night. Like, it was just a really busy time in our life. And he was climbing the corporate ladder. And so he was working a lot, and he was going to meetings. And I remember one night I was like, listen, man, these meetings do not seem to be helping. You're gone way too much, between meeting with the church leader and then going to the SA group and then going to the group at our church, like, and then going to therapy. Like, he was gone more than I would have liked him to be gone. And I just,
you need help at home.
Yeah, I'm like, just stay home and help me change diapers. Like, this is not, clearly this isn't working. So I'm over it. Like, just stay home and help me. Because at the time, when we first started, I was like dragging, like the 2 infant carriers with me to these meetings. And I was like, it's just too much work for not really making a whole lot of progress. And so that was when he stopped going to meetings. And then
2012.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, so that was 10 years ago. Crazy.
Yeah. And then what happened?
And then I had to figure it out. I was sitting there in that moment, and for me, it wasn't a release. It wasn't like, hey, don't go to these meetings anymore. Don't try to figure this out anymore. It was really just, whatever you're doing is not working. So stay here, change diapers with me, help me do what needs to be done here, because we have all these kids. And she didn't explicitly say this, and I don't think she needed to, because it wasn't like she was the one driving me to try and stop choosing pornography. Darcy, this is, I say this to my clients all the time, and to the wives of the clients all the time. My pornography use was not about Darcy. And it never had been, because it had happened before she existed in my mind.
And your desire to change
and my desire about me. Yeah, and my desire to change really wasn't about her. Although I think this moment solidified that. It was that thing where it was like, okay, well, she's not expecting me to go do all these things that are just kind of like, show me you're doing the right things, but I still want to solve this. And I think that's what a lot of the stuff that, especially people who are first finding out or first going through this process, they're doing the show me that you're doing it right things. Go to the meetings, talk to your, church leaders, talk to a counselor, show me the right things. But really, the right things weren't in those places, because none of those people knew how to solve for this problem. If they did, we would have a lot less people dealing with pornography, right? If you could just go to your church leader and be like, hey, I need to solve this, and they go, okay, this is what you got to do, then we wouldn't have this problem. So it was a matter of me saying, I need to figure this out. I need to look inside. I need to find out what's going on. I'm really good at figuring things out. I've always been good at figuring things out. I'm going to figure this out. None of that stuff has helped. What's next? Well,
and for me, I felt like I spent so much time going to the therapist, but really it was like, I'm just paying you money to listen to me complain.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I honestly, and once I realized, and granted, not all therapists are like this, obviously.
There are some really great
amazing
therapists
out there. So
we just didn't have any.
I'm not dissing therapists, right? But actually, there was one therapist I think that we went to that was really good, and I didn't like her because she was asking me to self-confront, right?
Oh, yeah.
And she was challenging me. Like, she literally said, her name's Marianne.
We should find her.
Yeah, she'd probably like listening to our story and see how far we've come. But I remember sitting in it was a home office, and she said to me, well, is there any other way you could react to his pornography besides being angry? And I was like, no, I'm angry. I'm so angry. Like, I was like, and I just kept saying, I'm angry. And I just I got out. I walked out of her house and I walked 2 miles home. Which
you were that angry.
Is a big deal.
Which that's huge.
Darcy.
Like, that is not me. Like, I don't go for 2-mile walks by myself. I've watched way too many. Like, I survive stories on A&E or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's not my personality at all. But I was so angry. And
if someone had tried to snatch you, then they would have been. They would have deserved whatever they got.
Yeah, but really now looking back, what I see is that she was trying to help me. She was the first person that I had went to that was actually trying to help me.
She was the first person that we went to that wasn't just like, well, Zach, let's focus on you. Let's fix you. And then everything will be okay with Darcy. And that's a really different feeling. And the truth is, and this is a really hard thing for a lot of people to hear. So I'm going to say it, and I'm going to hope that people take it in the sense that it's meant.
Yes,
which is you and your partner are creating a meaning frame. You're creating a reality that you interact in. Now, that doesn't mean that your partner's behavior is your fault. It simply means that in that meaning frame, the way that you're behaving and the way that your partner is behaving are part of the dance that you have created together. And if you want to change that, if you want to move past that, it is much more valuable for you to look at how you are interacting with your partner than it is to look at your partner's behavior and tell them they need to fix something. And that was, I think, you asked earlier, what was the turning point? We didn't have like a real, like, all of a sudden it was fixed. It was this line upon line shift from this is Zach's problem to we're in this together. We're going to solve this together. I'm going to work on me. You're going to work on you. We're going to get to become the kind of people that we like being, and therefore will like being around each other. That's a totally different ballgame than the betrayal, trauma, addiction model. Like we talk about, so a lot of people come to us and they're like, I'm an addict.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's decide, are you an addict? Are you addicted? And is this totally just your problem and no one else's? So for the most part, I like to ask people, if somebody walks in on you looking at porn, what are you going to do?
You're going to shut the computer?
Yeah, you're going to shut the computer, you're going to hide, you're going to pretend like no boners here, right? Nothing like what an addict would do. Because I know what an addict would do. I've seen it up front and close, right? So when I was a missionary in Italy, I was sitting on a train and this woman got on the train with us. And she looked at me and I looked at her and we made eye contact. And she, in that moment, got out her kit and started to shoot heroin. She did not care what I thought. She did not care that I was there. She only cared about getting her fix.
Yeah.
Now, unless you're a dude or a woman who views pornography and your partner walks in and you just hold up that one finger and are like, one moment, this is a really good part. I'll be with you when I'm done. Then it's very unlikely that you're an addict. Even if you did that, it'd be very unlikely that you would be an addict, but it's very unlikely that you're an addict. What you probably are is ashamed of your behavior. And shame is what's driving the secrecy. Shame is what's driving the hiding. Shame is what's driving all of the negative emotion around this particular activity. Now, if you want porn in your life, there are people who are probably listening to this and they're like, listen, I like to watch porn. My wife doesn't care, or we watch it together, or my husband watches porn, or I watch porn separately, whatever, it doesn't matter.
We're just taking the moral judgment of it
and
out
you guys
for
are
just
all
a
fine,
moment.
right? If that's where you are, I'm not here to tell you don't watch porn. I'm not your mom.
Yes.
But what I am saying is if what's happening in your relationship is one partner, whether it's the man or the woman, is hiding their pornography viewing habit because they are ashamed of it, they're almost certainly not addicted. They're almost certainly not someone who has no control. And one of the things that I struggle with when it comes to the addiction model is the sense of us not being able to control anything.
And it just goes back to, what good does believing that you're powerless?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it's like saying, like if you're trying to move up at work and you're like telling yourself you're the worst person ever, right? Like
I'm powerless to do anything. I'm powerless to achieve anything.
Yeah, you're not gonna show up in your life as someone who's confident and ready and willing to do the work.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So the idea that I'm an addict it's essentially a victim space. You're a victim of this behavior. You're a victim of something that you cannot control. And I like to ask people, when was the last time a roving band of pornographers came to your house, tied you up, and said, "We're going to get naked and you're going to watch"? That's never happened to anybody. So the truth, maybe somebody. If it has happened to you, I would like to hear your story. I think that would be an amazing story to hear. But the truth is, we're choosing this behavior. And once we recognize that it is a choice, we can actually take back our agency, take back our free will, and we can start the process of changing the way that we interact with ourselves emotionally and sexually, which is huge, huge. And that's the work that we do. And that's the work that Darcy does with the wives, where she goes and she helps them find this is not just about a choice that he's making, but it's about a meaning frame, a choice that you're making as a partner and how to react to this. And I think that makes a huge difference. The wives who work or talk with Darcy, it's kind of amazing. Like I work with dudes for like 12 weeks, 12 separate sessions over about 6 months. So it's really a long time. Darcy, she can have a conversation with somebody for 1 hour and it changes their entire perspective. And then they say things like, what did that one lady say? I wish I could just have you.
She's like, I wish I could just have you talking in my ear all day long. Like, it's so helpful.
There's a price for that. Like, you could pay for that, I think.
I want to go back to, so Darcy, you decided, I'm not going to treat Zach this way anymore. I'm not going to punish him anymore. Like, what was it that you changed your behavior, but what was the change and shifts that you made?
So
what mental tools or what thoughts helped you kind of through that?
So for me, it was a process, right? It wasn't like that one day was like, oh, I'm all better now. I'm really good at looking at my behavior and I'm not going to worry about Zach, right? But it was like a gradual process of learning. So it was like the more I learned about things, the more I started to realize that, I guess here's what I'm trying to say. The more I got more curious about what was actually happening for Zach, right? And listening to what he's saying is going on in those moments, the more I started to realize like, oh, wow, yeah, this is so similar to food, right?
Because you didn't want to hear his reasons, right?
Yeah, well, before I just wasn't even willing to hear anything from him. It was more like, no, like you're doing this because you're not a good person.
Gotcha.
In a lot of ways, like it was more just I just was really in the victim position. That's how I don't know. I just felt like
everything was happening to you rather than
I felt out of control. I felt like I had no control over anything, right?
Yeah.
When I found out he was looking at pornography, I felt like my life, all the control got sucked out of me, right? And so then what do we do when we feel like we have no control? We start to control everything.
Yeah, you'd be more controlling.
That's what I did, right? I started to control Zach. I started to monitor all of his devices. I put passwords on everything. I, made rules like, well, when you go out of town, when you get into that hotel room, you need to unplug that TV, right? Like I made a lot of expectations of what I expected him to do. And honestly, I did it from a place of, I thought, love at the time. Like I thought, oh, I'm helping him, right? Like this will help him because I needed him to get better so that I could feel better.
But it was a little condescending in that too, because it's like, he needs me. He's not capable of doing it. He needs me to give him rules. He needs me to monitor him.
Well, yeah, clearly, because he's incapable, right? He keeps looking at porn. Right? Like, so I felt very justified in that position, right? Like, I did feel like I needed to control him because clearly he wasn't controlling himself.
Gotcha.
But
how miserable was that?
Horribly miserable, right? Because one, like, it wasn't working, right? Like, he was still finding a way to look at pornography when he wanted to. And two, it was constantly on my mind. It was like constantly playing in my head. Like, how can I make this go away? How can I help him? How can I make him better? How can I, and that really came from that place of insecurity in me. I felt so insecure and helpless around this issue. And so once I realized that, wow, doing all of this is making me miserable, I stopped. Because I don't know, you start to realize like, oh, wow, I actually really don't have any control. And I think, there's probably a woman out there that's like, oh, no, like since I've done all these things, it's helped. Right? Like, and maybe on the outside it has helped. But what's going on internally for him hasn't changed. Right? Because me taking control of everything is not changing what's going on for him. It's like, it's kind of like Biggest Loser. If anybody's watched The Biggest Loser, if you take a 500-pound person and you put them in a house and you make them exercise for like 12 hours a day and only eat the food that you hand them, of course
you control their environment only.
Right. Of course you're going to lose weight.
And then they leave the Biggest Loser resort. They go back home. They're dealing with the same stresses and life. They're going to fall back to their old habits because
nobody who ever went home. Like, it was a contest, right? Nobody who ever went home
There were a few people.
Yeah, but they never won one, did they? If you went home,
I don't know.
Did you ever win? I don't think so. Let's do some research.
Yeah, I haven't ever looked into it that much. But the idea, it's like, if I can control everything in his environment, he might be able to not look at pornography.
Right. Send him on a deserted island. Right.
Yeah, but chances are, that's not going to solve the problem, because the problem isn't that something you can just lock down everything and then it's solved, right?
The problem is that you have to get good at dealing with your own emotions. Both of you have to get good at it. And you have to get good at self-validation, getting to a place where you're choosing things because it's who you want to be, not because it's who you're supposed to be or who somebody expects you to be. And those are tough places to get to for most people. And I think most people need help getting there because they don't, I don't think, I never did have that information. It took me 25 years. So if you don't want to take 25 years to solve this, then, get some help, get a coach, Dan can coach you. I can coach you. Darcy can coach you. It doesn't matter. But get somebody who has walked that path, because when someone has walked the path, they know which steps to take.
Right. Darcy, can we go back to food?
Yeah.
When you saw how porn is like food, that link and how that made sense to you?
So, for a lot of women, their struggles that they do, the things that we do that we don't like that we do about ourselves, I think of those as like eating. Could be yelling at your kids.
Your guilty pleasures, right.
Yeah, guilty pleasures like chocolate in the afternoon, or shopping. Even if you're not buying it, but just the idea of online shopping and adding things to your cart and getting that little bit of like, high, right?
Is that how it works?
I mean, it works like that for me,
These are behaviors you engage in when you don't feel good about yourself for whatever reason. So you'll do these things because they make you feel better in the moment, like turning to food and numbing out with that. Or some people might turn to excessive alcohol use because they can really numb their emotions that way, or
Yep.
Getting angry, ironically, temporarily helps too, because that's a way to manage your emotions. Or like complaining to a friend is also a way, because if you can get someone else on your team as an ally in it, it helps you kind of calm your emotions. These are all temporary losing strategies we do, though. Right?
I'm totally going to interrupt you right now. So when you say you could get people on your team, I could get pretty much every single person I knew to be on my team.
To agree with you,
to agree with how horrible Zach's
a terrible human.
Because he struggles with porn, right? Like I could easily get people to be like, yeah,
I wasn't on your team. Well, sometimes even I sometimes was on your team, I think. Yeah, that's terrible.
That you are. That you're a horrible person.
I realize that now.
Yeah, right. And so, I guess realizing that when you could get everybody on your team, you really do feel super justified in your position of being angry and staying in that it's his problem. It's we talked to this couple, and it was interesting because he had never been honest about his porn use. Right. And his wife was like, all I want him to do is be honest with me. Just tell me the truth. Right. And then it will be okay. And she's like, and since he's worked with Zach, he's telling me the truth. And I'm still not okay. And so I think that's one of the things sometimes we say, oh, well, if he's just honest with me, then I won't be so angry. Right. Or if he just does it this way, then I'll be okay. But that's not really how it works, because you're still left with having to deal with your emotions around this. Yeah. And if you're still making his porn use mean something about you and something about your relationship, or maybe something that you feel is maybe lacking in your relationship, if that's how you're looking at pornography, then you are never going to feel okay.
Yes.
It's more about looking at it from, okay, what is going on for him? How am I more like him than different? Because you'll probably see that you do something very similar to what your spouse does. It's just with something else, like social media.
Like in your case, was it food? What did you turn to?
Yeah, for me, so when he first was looking at pornography, I was like 122 pounds, and, I could rock a bikini if I wanted to.
It's pretty hot.
And I was like, oh, how dare you? How dare you look at porn? You're going to have a fat wife now. Like, I literally said that, which is so stupid. And it did.
Self-sabotaging too.
Yeah. Seriously. And so then I just started eating food, right? Like, if I was angry, I would eat food. And I'd be like, this is his problem. This is his fault. He's going to have a fat wife because he's choosing to look at porn.
Okay.
And so that went on for a lot of years. And yeah, it's actually one of my biggest regrets, I think, dealing with this whole thing, was that I turned to food like he was turning to pornography. And I didn't previously have that problem, but it was. And then if I look back, I could also say it's actually a blessing too, because it helped me see what was going on for Zach more clearly.
With more compassion. Can you talk on that? All of a sudden, you had more compassion for Zach.
Yeah, it's really hard to look at something that you believe is hurting you and destroying your marriage and have compassion for the person who's doing it, right? And so, and this is hard for me to talk about, because I know that there are some men out there that are not good men that struggle with porn, and that they're abusive, and that they're not good people, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's not who I'm talking to.
Yeah,
I'm talking to the wives who have, fairly good husbands, like, who are just struggling, that are trying to be better, that are really, doing their best. They're not just like bad humans. And so
it doesn't justify their behavior, but these are the men that have really tough things they're dealing with, like a really difficult boss or a really hard day at work.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of interesting. I found that it seems like there's a lot of people that we work with who are very successful. And it seems as though, and it's like, okay, well, what value did pornography have? Well, a lot of times pornography helped them deal with the stress of getting through med school or getting through dental school or dealing with
book.
Stressful jobs, right? Like that was their little outlet. And so it's like, what's my outlet? Because a lot of times if you're, a stay-at-home mom or even you're a working mom, but you have the majority, like statistically speaking, you still have the majority of the household responsibilities, even if you are a working mom. That's a lot of stress. That's a lot of responsibility. And so it's like, what is it that you turn to? And then realizing, wow, okay, we're actually more similar than different. Yeah, I don't, it's very easy. I could say, well, the way that I choose to escape is more righteous than the way that he chooses to escape, or the way that I choose to escape isn't hurting, him like it's hurting, his escape is hurting me. So you can still stay in that dynamic and like you can keep choosing it and you'll be okay. You'll just probably not move forward and you'll probably be miserable. But if it's more like, okay, I want to see how I can change from where I am and how we can change our dynamic. It's about the willingness to create compassion and empathy and understanding for your partner. Just like I think we as women expect our husbands to, right? Like if our husbands come home and we're like, oh, listen to how bad my day was, right? Like, if they're like, dude, get over it, man. You chose this. You chose to have these kids, right? Like, that's not going to go over very well, right?
No.
But
it's your problem. Fix your own problem, wife.
Yes, exactly. We want our husbands to say, oh, man, I can see that would be hard. That would be really hard. I'm glad, I'm glad that I'm not struggling with that. And so I think that if your spouse is someone who is trying to not look at pornography, they don't want to look at pornography, there's so much room for growth in that. There's so much room to expand the way that you're currently dealing with your situation to create an atmosphere where you can both thrive.
Well, and your growth, the changes that you made it easier for me. Which is a funny thing because you would think, well, this is, I think a lot of times, like we've said before, this is his problem. But when she changed, it made it easier for me to be real with her. It made it easier for us to actually have real intimate conversations where she got to know who I really was. Part of the reason why I think many men struggle with pornography is because it's a place they can hide and be alone and have 100% control. Yeah, 100% control over the scenario and never get rejected.
Yeah,
but when
empty,
you're able to,
but hey, at least for a moment, you think it's a good thing, right?
So when she was able to be more real and let me be more real, be more the person that I am when I'm alone with myself, with her, instead of turning it into, well, you're not enough, or you need to be better, or whatever it was. That gave me the capacity to grow and learn and be closer to her in a way that I was never able to before.
And this didn't happen like overnight. Like it took years for him to finally believe that he could trust me to be able to handle his truth without losing myself.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Right? Because for a lot of years it was, if he were to actually tell me what was going on for him, I couldn't handle it. I didn't want to hear it.
Like if I would say, oh, I'm stressed at work, she'd be like, are you going to get fired?
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter what it was. It was just like automatically,
right.
Are you going to get fired? So I thought I had to hide that from her. I
can't upset my wife. I can't tell her what my life is like, right? Because she can't handle it or whatever.
Right. So it was more like a process of being willing, like, okay, I can handle this. I can handle what he's going to tell me. I'm not going to lose my personal well-being over something that he's struggling with.
Gotcha.
So the real growth came when he could tell me, hey, this is what was going on for me. This is what I chose to do. And I could hear that and say, that sucks, right? I'm sorry you feel that way. I can see how hard that is for you versus you've got to stop this or I'm out of here. It's more about.
I like to think about flipping it on its head, right? So what if I were to come to you and be like, you can't eat that. You're not allowed to eat that. If you eat that, we're not going to stay married. Or if you shop one more hour on the internet, we're going to end our relationship. That seems to me absurd.
Yeah.
And yet I think that's a lot of the way that we try to deal with pornography in relationships.
Yeah.
It also because we're trying to deal with the behavior and not trying to, get compassionate, find out why are they turning to this? Why are you shopping? Why are you eating?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that? Like, can you approach that with some more compassion, right?
Yeah. And that's not to, sometimes when people hear us, if you look at podcasts, I do a lot of looking at podcasts and looking at negative reviews. All the podcasts that I follow, if I look at most of their negative reviews, they're around episodes that are done on pornography.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm always scared to say things because I don't want people to take it the wrong way.
Yeah. Please don't misunderstand us.
And
yes,
so
we believe there's a moral problem here.
Yes.
But for a moment, that we're suspending judgment, just to be really clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We don't morally believe that pornography is a good thing.
Yes.
We do not choose to have pornography in our marriage.
We
are not okay with pornography in our marriage. So sometimes people think, what? So you think pornography is not bad or that it doesn't, cause problems? That's not what we're saying. But we found that if we're going to move forward and kind of pull yourself out of that vicious cycle, the best way to do that is to look at it from a behavioral standpoint, not from a moral standpoint.
Yes.
Because, what do we do when we feel bad? Like, we typically don't do good things.
No. Or
right?
You hide it more.
Yeah. Right? You're like, oh, if people found out about this, they're going to think I'm,
or
the
you
worst
learn
thing
to
ever.
hate yourself, self-loathing, and that doesn't help you become a better person.
Because our brains want to feel better. Like, that's why we like sugar. That's why a lot of people like soda and caffeine and
video games.
Even working out, right? Like, working out can be something that people get obsessed with and do so much that it actually causes damage, right? So it's like, but they like the high that they get from it. So it's,
you just have to be careful, right? No, we're not saying look at porn, that's okay. Absolutely not. But what we are saying is, if you want to solve for this, beating each other up over it is not going to be a helpful way to do it. Telling your partner you're not enough, or you need to fix this, or any of that language that I think immediately jumps to mind, especially when we feel offended, that attack language or that defense language, that is probably going to slow the process. But if you can learn to love your partner, see them for who they are, and acknowledge that what's going on for them doesn't necessarily mean anything about you, then you're much more likely to be capable of helping them solve for this.
Yes.
Because they're going to be willing to share what's going on.
like,
if your partner had cancer and you were like, well, I don't want to hear, you just need to fix that. That makes no sense. You look at your greatest trials and you think, if I can share this with my partner, not make them responsible for it, not make them manage me around it,
but
solve for it, right? Not make them like, every time I get an urge, I just have sex with my partner. That's not it. But if I can share it with them and be real with them, then they're going to be able to find a way to be real with you, which will create a dynamic that is much more valuable in terms of your capacity to know each other and love each other and grow through the trial.
So I was once chatting with a friend, and she was telling me how her husband has struggled with pornography. And so she has said that, hey, if you want to have sex, no matter when, like, I'm game, right? And so she had said that there's some times where they have sex multiple times a day. And this was her words exactly. If it helps him not turn to pornography, then I'm okay with it. And I was like,
it's not about intimacy. It's not about love and connection.
Yeah.
It's about.
I was like,
avoiding a behavior she doesn't want.
Yeah, and I thought that's a really interesting thing. And I guess if there's any wives out here listening, if maybe you're doing that or you think that that's part of the solution, I'd ask, is that what you want your marriage to be? Do you want to just be something that your spouse uses as a way to manage their stress? Like that's not intimacy to me. Like that's no thank you. Right.
Well, that's not even really a mature position.
Yeah.
Honestly, for either of them, because for him, it's not a mature position because he is not dealing with what is happening for him and needs something external to manage his emotions. Mm-hmm. And for her, it's not a mature position because she's choosing to be an object rather than a person. And
and I think it just kind of shows in a lot of ways how hard it feels when your spouse chooses pornography, right? That you would be so desperate to have him not choose that you would allow yourself to be used.
Well, that's where it breaks down.
Yeah.
Because I don't know of any scenario like that where eventually he won't choose pornography.
Yeah.
It just doesn't maybe it's possible, but I would be very, very surprised if it were to occur, which tells me that at some point she's going to find out and she's going to become devastated because in her efforts to manage his struggle, she has failed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she has given everything to that effort. Mm-hmm. So, of course, that's going to break down. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a devastating breakdown.
Yeah. As we wrap this up, I'd like to hear what things are like today for you two. I know you two very personally. You two are such a fun couple. You're very passionate towards each other. And you've both come such a long way. I want to hear what your black belt sex tips are for listeners. That I want them to know there's
mine first.
Things are great on the other side. And things are amazing and smoking hot and way better on the other side. And it's worth it working through this.
Well, so number one, our sexual relationship is much better now than it ever has been. And I think that is entirely due to our willingness to go through this work. And, that's just the sexual part of it. But I think our relationship with each other as, two humans, the intimate relationship that we have that isn't about sex is also that much better because of the work that we've done. And I think the sex is better because of that intimate relationship. So my black belt tip is it's something that I saw on a movie preview back in the 90s. And it was Alec Baldwin talking to his kid about sex. And he says, making sex is like a Chinese dinner. It ain't over till you both get your cookies. And I think that's important.
We all know what the cookies are, right?
Yeah, right. I think so.
There's a fortune in that. That's great.
What's yours?
Darcy?
Yeah, and I guess I thought of this while you were talking, so I'm just going to say it. If he solved for pornography and I didn't do any of the growth that I've done, I do not think that our intimate relationship would be where it is today now.
Yeah.
And that is because I had to do so much growing on my side. And so with that, I just feel like for me, I remember there was a time where it was like, oh, well, I don't want to do that because did you see that in porn?
Yes.
Right. Or is that something you saw in porn and that's why you want to do, I was very much like, let's keep this vanilla. Let's keep this, top and bottom, nothing exciting.
Yes.
And it was like that for a lot of years. And then it was finally like, as I allowed myself to be a sexual person and not compare myself to porn, not think that I'm trying to be a porn star. Or,
not competing against anyone.
Yeah,
no
not
auditions
me,
here.
But really dropped into my body and owned my sexual self and was willing to express that and share that with Zach, then it was so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any specific ways where you're like, I'm going to get really good at this? Or do you set goals for yourself? How do you do that? What's that look like for you?
I'll just say this one goal. But like for me, like I was never able to have an orgasm from doggy style position, right? And I was like, that's something that I want to work towards. That's something that I would like to achieve sexually. Or just ways that I could push myself. Like, you know, could I be willing to make eye contact while I do certain things? Or, you know, just that kind of stuff. Like, am I more willing to be seen? Am I willing to let him see my body for exactly how it is, even though I've had 8 children, and just own it?
Yes.
And so like those are the things that I've pushed myself. And when I feel like, at least I think you would say, is it's made things so much better.
Yeah.
It's so much more fun. Like there's so much freedom in our bedroom, where before it was just like, come on, just get this over with. Hurry up. Like, I don't want you to look at porn, so let's just have sex and do this. So,
yeah. And I'm so grateful for that, because it's changed the entire ball game. And it's interesting to think that porn was my problem in the beginning, and when it became, we both need to grow up, and we both need to learn, and we both need to move forward as partners, then things changed for us, which is huge.
And this isn't easy work. Like, it's not easy. Like, the journey that I have been on was not easy. Like, it was, like I said, it was really easy to stay, you know, the victim, and this is his problem.
And you know, those women who are in that position and those men who are in that position, I would say, you don't have to solve this today, but if you are willing to try, move forward together.
And I just, as a closing, if you're listening to our story and you're like, wow, that feels different, right? I challenge you to do something about it. Push yourself. See how you can look inside and say, okay, well, what part do I play in our dynamic? Not that my part is in charge of his problem, but what part do I play in this? And how can I become a better person, because that's what I want to do.
Yes.
So, and just realize that there is so much hope. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've all heard all the stories about so-and-so got divorced because of pornography. Like, we've all heard those stories, but that doesn't have to be your story if you don't want it to be. You can come together, work on this, grow through it, and get to where you want to be. And it's not an overnight process, and doesn't work by saying you just never look at pornography again, because that's probably not realistic. It's like, you just never eat sugar again. Good luck, right? It's right. Like, how can we look at this from a more mature position, a more realistic position, and move forward together to get to where our end goal is, which is we don't look at pornography. So,
yeah. Awesome. So good. Oh, I love everything about this. If people want to learn more about you two and what you do, where do they find you?
So I think the most helpful place to go is to listen to our podcast. It's called the Self Mastery Podcast. Okay. And from there, obviously, we have a website. It's just
ZachSpafford.com.
You could follow us on Instagram. I'm sure you'll probably link to it on Instagram. All right.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Get Your Marriage On. And if you did, we would love it if you would take a few seconds to give us a rating on iTunes and to share the show with your friends. They'll thank you for life. Once you've done that, you can head over to getyourmarriageon.com for more resources about today's topic and to download our amazing marriage apps. Now go get your marriage on.